Shalom. As Palestine advocates, I think we need to be careful on the information that we spread because sometimes something takes off and it's not quite right. I've seen this time and time again within our community. And even if we're off with like certain numbers or some sort of interpretation of a fact, this does not excuse Israel, the Zionist entity, for what it is doing to Palestinians by any means. But I think that our integrity as a group is important, and we need to strive to do our best in relaying the truth, because that is what we are standing on, and that is what we value within this movement. And this kind of goes into this other vein of Zionist talking points, where they'll bring up some obscure historical fact that you may not have ever heard of. And, you know, it doesn't really matter. Don't fall into their trap of like maybe not knowing about this obscure thing they're saying that's probably a lie or half fiction. Because bottom line, does any of that warrant a Holocaust? No, it doesn't. So that's another aspect. So I want to bring up a point that I have noticed that has been repeated, and that is in regard to journalists who have been killed since October 7th, Palestinian journalists. And as we know, they are targeted by the Zionist entity, and they are so courageous to be doing what they're doing because Israel has targeted journalists long before this accelerated genocide started. As we know, the genocide has been going on since 1948. We are in an accelerated genocide, a Holocaust of our time. But I want to clarify, because I've read claims that the journalists killed, the Palestinian journalists who have been killed since October of 2023, exceed the numbers of multiple wars and the numbers of journalists totaled together who have been killed in those wars. And so I wanted to get down to it, to really look at the numbers of those who were killed. And it was actually kind of hard to find the numbers, but I did find one, which was the Iraq War. The U.S. invasion of Iraq was in 2003 to 2011, and journalists were targeted in that invasion. And since 2003, there have been at least 285 journalists, Iraqi journalists, who have been killed since then. And as for Palestinian journalists, at least 232 have been killed since October 7th of 2023. So I just want to clarify, the Iraqi number of journalists killed is, again, at least 285, which is a higher number of journalists than the 232 who have been killed, Palestinian journalists. These are people, each one, no, they are not numbers. And so this is all very important. But technically, when people are claiming that more journalists have been killed throughout those wars, more journalists have been killed in Palestine since October 7th than all these other wars combined, including the Iraq War. That's not factual. But if you notice, when I talked about the Iraqi War, 2003 to 2011, and apparently this number of 285 is actually a number representing from 2003 to now. That's such a long range of time. But with Palestine, we are not even quite at the 2-year mark of the Holocaust. of Palestinians. And already there's over 200 Palestinian journalists who have been killed. So there's no doubt that journalists in Palestine are targeted, as well as Iraqi journalists were targeted. And then I should know this, but the Iraq population is probably much higher than the Gazan population. And so the percentage of journalists per population total is much higher when you're looking at it with Palestine. And so maybe that is what is meant when they're describing the journalists being killed in wars. Like, it's more about the percentage per the population. But it's not framed that way. It's framed in like raw numbers. So just a little clarification. Have a good day.